Action.
Yeah.
Yeah. Only one take, though.
Right. Improv. I'm just kidding.
No, okay. Are we live?
Yeah.
All right, well, welcome everyone. This is the October 24th regular meeting of the Trumansburg Planning Board. And we have a quorum here. We're still expecting Joe, but Sarah is out of town and not able to Zoom in either. So we're going to go, but since we have a quorum and we've got applicants here, we're going to get started on time. I asked the board members and everybody up here to introduce themselves just for the record. Mark?
Mark Bogatus, planning board member.
Tom Myers, zoning officer, code officer.
Rick Geiger, planning board chair.
Jessica Giles, village clerk treasurer.
Michelle Matroni, planning board member.
Okay. The second item on the agenda tonight is the approval of minutes, but we're going to skip that because the minutes, while they've been completed, they haven't been circulated yet. So we'll hit those in our November meeting. Those would be the minutes that have to do with the approval of the ice cream bar
Right.
site plan review. So we need to get that on the record as well. The active items before us tonight, there's two of them. One is the activity at 1 East Main Street, and the other is the site plan application packet that we have for the conservatory. And so we're going to start with the 1 East Main project. And we have the applicant, Phil McGuire, here. And Phil, I'll give just a brief little introduction of, sort of where things stand from the standpoint of the planning board. So at the site, this is for the benefit of the board, at the site, there's been work going on there now for a while. Most of it confined to infrastructure and other, internal things, wiring, code related kinds of things that just needed to be taken care of. But there came a time when Tom and I put our heads together and decided, okay, enough is going on there now, that under the terms of our zoning ordinance, we really should get a site plan application going and move from a sort of a posture where we're doing incremental building permits for individual pieces of the project to looking at the whole thing. And so Tom and I, as is actually suggested aloud under the zoning ordinance, got together with Phil and his construction folks and did a sort of a beginning of a sketch plan review. And that, as you probably remember, is a way that the zoning ordinance lets us kind of begin these projects in a conversational way so that everybody can get on the same page in terms of what's going to be required to apply and what the standards are going to be that we apply to it. So we started that process with Phil and thought it would make sense to now put it on the agenda and sort of think of this as a continuation of that. Phil has indicated that he's got an application packet sort of underway and it's getting into shape, but it's not quite where he felt comfortable sort of presenting it as a formal application packet quite yet. And that made perfect sense to me and seemed like, okay, that fits right into our format here and we can go ahead and do a sketch plan review with the board. And with that, I'll turn it over to Phil, who, I'm going to just ask you, I guess, to describe the project in as much detail as you think you can. And
I'd like to hand out a couple of things first.
oh, sure, absolutely.
I have some extras for people that aren't here. And I'll get you a digital copy of these.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah. So it's just a little bit of a reading there.
So,
Okay, great, great, thank you.
thanks. Yes.
You guys are
Speaking.
You're a neighbor, you're not sitting.
Yes, but yes.
Yes.
I'm good. Warren.
That's fine. So here, I'll leave you for take one to my second, these sections here.
Great.
Yeah, thank you.
And Phil, if we could just also get you to, when you start talking, talk into the microphone. 'cause-
Sure.
So for the broadcast, yeah.
There we go. So this is just for preliminary conversation and thought starters.
Thank you.
We have a very consistent idea, but it's a lot of details that are not.
Yeah, well, you started off in one direction, if I remember right, and kind of changed plans, and now are moving a little, you'll probably go into this, moving in a little bit different direction.
Yeah, okay, yes, I'll start. So my name is Phil McGuire and I'm here to represent McGuire LLC, the owner of One East Main Street. We purchased this property about a year ago, and the initial intent was to renovate it for McGuire Family Insurance Agency as a space that we could grow into, that we could expand with, and that was located in a great location with all the amenities that would be beneficial for the business and for the people that work there. As we progressed with the project, we really took a look at the building, and it wasn't quite suitable for what our application was. And, you know, inevitably, we really felt that to do what we want to do right, that it really someday should be redone in predominantly a multi-story building with mixed-use retail and all kinds of different things. But that really wasn't in the budget or prepared for us to do at this moment in time. So the intent kind of segued over to, let's get a really great tenant. Let's enhance the building. Let's try to renovate it for, to be more commensurate with the downtown that it's in and be a benefit to the community, and hopefully find a marketable tenant, which we do not have to date, but someone that may make just a great usage, whether it's a restaurant, a bakery, a brewery, a market, a retail operation. It really, the intent of the design is just to be very generic, that could fit a lot of different uses that would be conducive to a great tenant. So that's what segued into our renovation to where we are today. The majority of all of the interior renovations you'll kind of see in the narrative. And then we have some site plan depictions and pictures and renderings that, again, are very basic, and they're 100%, subject to change. But the overview of the narrative was to redo the interior. So as you know, the building is very aged. We put on a new roof under the existing permit. We put in insulation. We put in a high efficiency HVAC system, air conditioning. We're repainting the interior. We're putting in brand new wood flooring, white oak quarter sawn wood flooring, and custom trim. We've renovated 2 ADA compatible restrooms that will be in the facility. And then we are refacing the exterior just to be a more modern and upscale look that would be inviting to some sort of retail environment. So as far as the site plan goes, I think it's more of the exterior facade and the things unrelated to the existing permit. And that's kind of what we have presented here for you this evening.
Mhm.
So the front of the exterior, our intent is to keep the traditional shape of the building. We would like to reface the exterior of the front with some sort of natural horizontal facade, possibly thermal wood siding, or something that may be a modern crisp walnut look that we have some pictures of, or possibly a weathered pickled gray type of feel to it. I think we're open to the cladding color and look. We wanted to replace all the doors and windows of the facility. So our intent is we have black framed windows and doors and a lot of new glass. The front section of the building, we have designed 2 12-foot openings side by side that are approximately the same length of the existing window. And our intent there is actually to put in overhead, they're not doors, they're architecturally designed doors that go to the ground, but they are, have the ability to open that butt up against the upper canopy, and you can have indoor, outdoor access. So if it was a restaurant or if it was retail, it'd be able to bring the outdoors in during seasonal times. And we have a depiction of that, I think, in the drawings. As far as the side on the exterior on Union Street, we have added another entrance at the request of the village. That would be a good idea for better ingress and egress to the building. And in that case, we have a depiction where we'd like to do matching facade to the front. Whatever we do to the front, we'd like to do to the side with consistent awning, metal roofing, and kind of a dressed up side appearance. The block wall that we have on the side of Union Street would remain. However, we were intending to make it into a green wall, so to speak, to have plants that particular Virginia creeper that was more of a docile variety of ivy that would cover the block wall into a green wall. And then the back entrance, certainly the intent there is to do the same as the side and the front and do similar cladding, have it all tie together, and be a nice entrance on the back. As far as the rear parking lot, our intent is to basically convert 1/3 of it to green space and then use 2/3 of the existing parking lot for regular parking. And I'll show you some different depictions we have there. And then last but not least, we want to repair and maintain the riparian buffer. And so we have a process without disturbing soil that would basically enhance and repair the buffer under the current statute. So that's the basics of the project. And open for discussion.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a silly point of information here on the cover. I just had a discussion with the other applicants. You have town planning board meeting narrative. This is actually the village. And obviously we know where we are, you know where we are, but
Thanks, Tom. Noted.
Are there aspects of this that you want to show us or point us toward in terms
Yeah.
of drawings?
Yeah, let me see on my.
That is,
It just really doesn't pick up the room if you don't have the mic. I know. You're a rock star, you can do it.
there we go.
Okay. All right, well, so if you look at the town planning, AKA village planning, board meeting narrative, you'll see that this is a written description of what I've said very poorly. So please go back and read this and it'll tell you in a much better description of what we're trying to do. In addition, if you skip a couple pages, you'll kind of see just an example of natural wood cladding that we've just, taken a look at. We're kind of thinking of either a crisp natural wood or possibly a weathered, more traditional face. Now, again, this would have bright black glass framing around the front and all the doors are glass. And then, of course, we have a bright black metal roofing system that's going to be installed. So what's on it now is actually a temporary metal roofing that you see. There'll be a more refined finished version of a black metal roof over the awning. On the front, so the other situation that we're trying to add is a cornice on the very top of the parapet. So we'd like to raise the parapet a little bit and add a cornice that we have designed, which is also in kind of the narrative of the different plans. And in addition, we would probably add several corbels, decorative corbels underneath the awning. Most likely, some sort of black metallic to match that looks modern, that gives it some decorative front, more aesthetic facade. So as you move through, we just have an example of the roofing system, an example of the front door system that we were planning to use, which is an Evo door. It's a single architecturally designed door So it's 12 feet wide and it stands 8 feet high when it's open. So it's very, very tall, fits the space perfectly. And what happens is either one of the doors can open in one piece and snug right up underneath the awning that allows for complete access indoor, outdoor. And if you know the site, which I know you do very well, it does not intrude in the existing walkway or the existing sidewalk that's there. There's actually a lot of space. So it's kind of a perfect fit, I think, for that particular piece in the village. And then the last piece on that handout is the riparian buffer code. So if there's any questions about what we're doing or what the code is, I just added that, and it's courtesy from Tom Myers. We appreciate it.
And we had that conversation several weeks ago about being able to work in the impervious surface, the parking area without entering into protecting the riparian buffers.
Yeah, and I'm happy to talk about that and what our intent there is and how we go about that if there's any questions.
Interested in like kind of what the current situation is for that. I sort of, I know exactly where we're talking about, but just curious, like the current measurements and kind of vegetation is there, and
Yeah.
if you're parking lots to like take some of, like remove some of that and then try to add it back, or just you just give me a sense of the overall situation.
Yeah, so our intent is really just to improve and repair the existing buffer. So because we're already way into the actual buffer grandfathered in with the size where the parking lot is, you pretty much have the steep bank that has a lot of invasive species already existing. In addition, there's a lot of garbage, there's a lot of clutter, concrete blocks. It's really just kind of a chaotic mess as you go down that border. And so what our intent would be is that we have a process where we put in a silt sock over the top so that if there was any water, it would not go over the edge and create any type of erosion issues. We would cut the vegetation, but we would not disturb any soil. So we leave all the roots intact on the entire buffer area. So there'd be no soil disturbance.
Won't just die because they're getting turned back hard.
Yeah, so what would happen after we cut the plants at the surface level is you generally would add a product that's called item 4, which I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's a mixture of golf ball size rocks, sand, and soil. And what that does is creates a stable structure to the bank and the pitch. And it also would be then layered with topsoil above it. And then we would put a mesh jute mat over that, and we would replant with sustainable native vegetation afterward.
So main architect kind of taking care of the planning of the vegetation, or is that the subcontractor that they use? It's kind of like the end of the.
Yes. Yeah, well, so this is certainly a preliminary conversation, but you know, we have a design professional that is on our team, but we're all ears to suggestions of plant species and different things that.
We have a lot of expertise in the community about that, not so much for the person, but we get to like maybe get somebody involved to come on and person.
And
Check that.
Sure. Yeah, I think the intent was to plant native species that promote biodiversity and stability to the bank. The other thing that the item 4 does when you put it on, it takes out all the topographical problems. So you have this just, you know, crazy bank, and the item 4 will just make a nice, the correct pitch, a safer pitch. It adds stability. And then of course the topsoil over it will create the environment where we can then do the plantings. We poured a small pad on the back corner. That was a repair to where the HVAC system sits. And so there's actually a very small 5 to 8 foot section that you can go look at that would depict kind of what I'm describing.
Yeah, I walked down
That is
there
great.
today and, yeah, it is very helpful to look at that and, you know, get a visual and compare it to what has been.
Yeah.
And I did read up at the DC site about best practices for this kind of situation. And you folks are indeed following best practice. So.
That's great to hear. And I know what item 4 is now. I didn't know.
It sounds like something,
I know,
something
but
the CIA.
I know. What did you say?
Now I know, but I found out a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
but
yeah, I just found out tonight.
As far as the parking lot goes, you also have water runoff. And so we do have a design intent where what's left of, so the existing parking is all gravel, it's all parking. And so we really want to convert, you'll see in the plans that you can kind of, if you want to switch to, you'll see a very detailed patio setup, high density planting areas, some sitting walls, and then, maybe a 1/3 to green space, another 2/3 that would remain parking. And so the intent in the parking lot is really to put an underground rainwater system that would collect all of the water runoff. And of course, it has an open bottom so that the water naturally seeps down into the ground. And it just has an emergency overflow if for some reason that, we had too big of a water event. And in that case, really the hope is to try to eliminate 100% of any type of water runoff that would ever go to the creek. And of course, now it all runs directly into the creek,
Yeah, right straight through the parking lot.
right straight through the parking.
Off the street into the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yes, so in addition, the street is a big problem. And so part of this project, which actually is under the permit that we're not in the site review maybe, but you can see that we're actually putting in granite curbing right now that's being installed this week. And we're putting in a new sidewalk that runs all the way up to the, where the parking lot is just a wide gaping opening. And so we're putting in an actual entrance that's correct. And we're putting in brand new sidewalk with granite curbing this week. And that'll stop a lot of the water that pours right off the hill from the conservatory project right over to the, going to stop all that silt, the conservatory.
So here's what, so your intention is to pave that 2/3?
That's still open for discussion whether we leave. I think the intent is to, this is a basic design. It's not really well designed. And so the intent is to really put a lot of thought as you can see, I have an architect looking at the plan to put together what may be more, I guess, reviewed as a boutique type of parking lot that has appropriate spacing, good coverage, and really we're looking for lighting that doesn't interfere with the neighbor. So the family that is just down the creek has a problem. There's a lot of light that, shines right into their home. And so part of this project is to remove the invasive lighting that currently exists and maybe try to come up with something that's safe, but has some, darker sky type of lighting that's more conducive to the residents down the creek. Sure.
Thank you. It's exciting.
So,
I think that's
Yeah.
good for now. I just want to talk a little bit about moving forward. I do think you've got a good start on site plan application. We're still going to need, the full thing, plus take a shot at the first part of the environmental assessment form. And once we have that, we can make a determination about where this falls under the seeker review requirements, whether it's a type 2 action or not. And proceed from there. And I'm hoping that maybe, because I know you're anxious to sort of keep things rolling, that we could maybe get that into a November meeting. Does that sound like that's a doable thing for you and your planners?
yes.
Okay. I don't exactly know when that November meeting is going to be, because we're going to have to reconfigure because we have Thanksgiving is our next meeting date. So we're going to have a little discussion of that later. But we'll of course let you know. And I guess if you have any questions in the meantime, as you're going through things, Tom's your main point of contact, and we'll move forward.
Tom's been great. And we are certainly, it's a little bit of a design build initiative. And you can see, I think in general, we're trying to hypothetically recreate a renovation for hypothetical usage that enhances the corner, to be beneficial for the community. So I think in the end, we certainly welcome a collaboration of ideas. And if you have insights and opinions, by all means, please share them. So I will, when you get my email with the drawings that I'm left with you tonight, you can review them. Please give us any feedback that you have, and I'll give you my email address will be in the submission. So, and you're welcome to reach out and contact me anytime personally as well.
Great, thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for
Could
getting
you
us
send
started.
electronic versions of this stuff?
Yes,
That'd be-
not till I correct the spelling error, but once I do, you'll get it.
Title. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Okay, so,
No, it's just settled on my end, but I looked at closely. And it's definitely-
all right, so we'll move on to the next main item on our agenda for tonight, which is the site plan application packet that we have received from the conservatory. And just again, a little bit of background for the board, because Tom and I have had a couple of meetings with Ezra and one with Ezra and George Cook about the project, just to get a more global sense of what's going on there. And that's been very helpful to us as we've sort of worked through this. It helped us, I think, get to the point where we could get a site plan review application rolling at this meeting. And that's important because depending on what we do tonight, we'll probably be looking to schedule a public hearing along with our next meeting in November. And that usually is the difficulty in terms of timing because of all of the notice requirements. And so, but we're hoping that with the advanced discussions that we've had, that we can move this thing along expeditiously, because the conservatory has things that need to be done in a timely way based on their grant application and the granting authorities. So we're going to do our best to, try to help that happen. And that's what tonight is about. It's basically to get the application in front of us, to hear from the applicant, and to make some preliminary decisions about whether and how to move forward, so we can also be efficient at our next meeting too.
Mhm.
So I'm going to turn it over to whoever is going to present, and then we'll move from there.
Great. I will be brief. My name is Donna Roman. I'm the managing director of the conservatory. I've seen all of you in our beautiful historic building. As you well know, we are the arts hub of the area. We serve over 200 children, the majority of them being from Trumansburg. The majority of our patrons for events are seniors, and we have very affordable programming. We work really hard for that to make those programs available for our families and seniors. That's a third leg of our focus. We offer multi-generational events, and we love to partner with the village on things like Halloween, which is coming up, and of course, Winterfest. And then lastly, we are an arts hub for the musicians and artists in the area. They're very supportive. As you know, I'm fairly new to the region, and I've been amazed at the unity. So with that, it's time to restore this historic building so that we can move forward with outreach and growth and the opportunities that we have. So I'm going to turn it over to the people who are in charge of the restoration project, and we thank you for your time. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ezra Delaney. I'm the chair of the Facilities Committee for the Conservatory as a board member. And this project started from our strategic planning, I think up to 8 years ago. We reached out to the community, and the board met and had long planning sessions about where our program should go and what direction and what the community wants from the conservatory. And it quickly became apparent that we couldn't expand much more until we become accessible. That the message we got was to open the building up to everybody. And that it shouldn't be enclosed, just a small group of people using it, that it really needs to be a community center and serve all members of the community. And looking at our building, it doesn't do that right now. We can't, kind of treacherous to get in and out of there. The ramps are not compliant. The entrance doors are non-compliant. They were built in 1851. Then there's tremendous amount of structural work that's been done over the years, boilers, dealing with past damage to the building that happened well before any of us were alive, probably. As part of that effort, we engaged Holmes King Calquest, and this is Jamie Williams from the architect's office, a specialist in historic preservation. And they've designed buildings all over the state and are well familiar with the kind of adaptive reuse of historic structures. They've done, I was familiar with their work at Cornell on Uris Library and many other projects there. They've partnered with us and have developed kind of an overall, the design documents that you see. The documents, I think, do balance the need for ADA accessibility and following the principles of universal design, which tries to get everybody to have the same accommodations in the building, and historic preservation and the modern needs of a public assembly space. We were awarded a grant from New York State Council on the Arts, the Delavan Foundation, 2 grants from Tompkins County Tourism, and then tremendous support from the community, and we're hopefully getting some additional support from the New York State Council on the Arts to finish the project. As you can see, the needs of that building are greater than we can afford. And I've been reminded that it took it over almost 200 or 18, how many years, 200 years to get to the condition it's been in. And we're not going to turn it around in one project. This project will do tremendous amount to preserve the structure, restore the historic elements of it, make it code compliant, and make it accessible to the community. And so that's really our goal. So with that, I'll leave. I'm not sure what the next steps are, or if you have questions for us.
Yeah, well, we've had the packet for a few days now. So I'll ask the board whether there are specific questions that any of the materials raised that you'd like to take up with the architect or with Ezra or with Donna.
I don't have any questions, but I think it's really wonderful that this is happening.
Great, thank you.
And I'm sure it's a lot of work and
Yeah.
an overwhelming project, but I'm very excited for it.
I'd like to note too, we did have public sessions during the design phase and invited people in and met with the architect and got feedback as we were progressing.
And it's been submitted and approved with the state historic preservation.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. Yep. And we will be replacing trees in the front. So, just in case. We're really sorry, but yes, the newsletter. Yeah.
That's true. 30 or 40, similar, different facility.
Yeah. So anything?
This paper, everything. Yeah, it started working, so sure, there may be surprises down the road when we start getting into some things.
Yeah.
I anticipate that the almost 180-year-old building.
Yeah. Yeah, we've been finding things as we go on. Yes.
What are the things that are down the road that you mentioned that this isn't going to be able to be just a single, project? What are we going to be looking at?
We have funds for the masonry pointing, the structural timber framing, the handicap accessibility, the restoration of the deck, the interior, exterior painting. We're hoping to get money by the spring to finish the interior work. With the plaster, we thought we could preserve the limestone plaster. We opened up the walls, it took that fiberboard down, there's nothing, it's not adhered to anything. Taking that down, then we have to insulate, which is a great thing, but again, not anticipated. So really that's finishing the interior of the building. Long term, beyond that, we look at then the 1901 building. Just that has a whole set of issues of its own that need to be addressed. It's not
That's the lean-to.
Oh.
right,
Yeah.
the piece in the back.
Yeah.
It's functional, and it has a very active art studio in the basement. And that would probably be another project down the line. The other projects probably the next thing would probably want to address the parking, and we have a concept of what we'd like to do, but we're no funding, and we'll be ready we now have a schematic enough to go to apply for grants for that. But that would entail having a one-way turn into the conservatory parking lot, handicap accessible parking, and then a parking around the back, just wrapping around. So we'd like to do some improvements there with drainage in this effort, in the near term, but then it will allow for that to become drainage or permeable paving or some option there. But again, that's we were hoping to fill in the potholes by next time it opens and get some improvements there. But until the building's safe for everybody and accessible, we're going to hold that off.
You know, like conservatory lake forms.
Yes.
My dog always looks forward.
I tried to dig down and see what it was, and
It's not empty.
yeah, it's solid. Something's really solid underneath there.
Probably slate.
Slate, yeah.
Yeah.
This would be-
Yeah,
Yeah,
may have been an old cistern.
Yeah,
That's- yeah.
I think there's pictures in the historical
Yeah.
society of the horses.
Yeah, well, there's some cistern. They found, when they were doing the sidewalk, they found, cisterns that were used for fire, pumps back in the day. So, yeah, I can't think of, there's so many things that we just started meeting on doing energy, got a grant from the Tompkins County to look at the long-term energy plan for the building. And there's some major grants available from the state, on getting near net zero or net zero buildings. And, we want to be ready for those applications coming up. So I don't have any idea what they're going to come up with, but
Yeah,
so,
it should be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the application packet? Well, it looked to me like it was very complete. Thank you. We appreciate it when we get the things that we need. Tom, have you looked at the application packet? Is it?
Yeah,
complete from
no,
that
actually, I
standpoint?
just complimented our guest here about the completeness of the package, and when my work is easier, I'm happier. And when I'm not happy, people don't tend to like that. But no,
You don't.
when we're looking at what's going to be required to go under site plan review, it's really pretty limited scope. And I have questions about the plans and, how you decided to do that or whatever, but that's nothing to do with our work here. So.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna ask the board for if someone would like to make a motion that this is a complete application and that we can move forward.
Okay, all right, I can second that.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. We have a quorum. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? No. Okay. Discussion? Further discussion? All right, so that, we have a complete application. And the next thing that we can determine, we also got the, part one of the environmental assessment form. One of the first things that I always look at, when we're doing the environmental, evaluation is whether we need to do that or not. The state law creates two types, and you probably all remember this, two types of environmental situations. One is a type 1, one is a type 2. If it's a type 1, we do the full-blown environmental review. If it's a type 2, then by definition, under the law, there is no significant environmental impact, and we don't need to do any kind of environmental review. I've looked closely at this, and as we discovered with the ice cream bar situation, and as we discovered with Atlas Bowl and several other projects, when you're just doing a renovation and not expanding or not doing new construction, then there's an exception that says that it's a type 2 from an environmental standpoint. And that pretty clearly is what's going on here. And if that changes in some way, we can always go back and look at that again. The other thing that we have to look at is that because the way this matrix of ordinances is set up, we also have a village environmental ordinance, which creates its own little set of special actions. And I've gone through that, and none of the exceptions apply in this case. And so it doesn't require any kind of special environmental review. The one thing that is left, again, in this thing is that there's another thing I'm sure you'll remember, the general municipal ordinance, which is part of the state laws, which requires municipalities to communicate with each other and with state agencies that might be interested in projects. And so if in Keyburg, the principal situation is if you're within 500 feet of a state highway, then you have to get the county planning folks to take a look at it.
Paste it up. Paste it up.
It's within 500 feet. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. And so that is something we will need to take care of. We had to take care of it in connection with the ice cream bar. You remember the Department of Transportation didn't have any comments. But Tom has contacts at the county and takes care of making this, referral to them. It shouldn't slow down our process.
That was gonna be my question. How long does it
Yeah.
take for them to?
Our experience with them is that they're quite responsive.
They have a allowable time of 90 days, I think.
Oh, okay, okay.
The one for the ice cream bar came in within 2 weeks, so
Okay.
Yeah, they always
And then-
remind us that they have 90
Yeah.
days.
Great,
just in case you were wondering.
Yeah,
okay.
so we'll take care of that. We can do that now.
Yeah.
We've got they require that you have the full site plan review application approved before they'll take a look at it. But we should now be able to initiate that process, and I don't expect that will slow us down. So that'll be something that Tom will take care of. And if it looks like there's going to be any hitch there, we'll figure out some way to work with that. I don't think there's anything else. We need to talk about our next
Our
meeting.
meeting.
Sarah sent me a note that said she's actually got to be traveling again. So our meeting is on Thanksgiving. And I think realistically, the only possibilities are the 2 weeks before that, at some
So that's
point. So
The
it would be-
21st and the 14th.
Yeah, whatever they are. I mean, there's 2 full weeks before Thanksgiving week, I think. And
14th's not great for me either.
okay,
But
so do we want to try it?
Thursday.
Thursday, the 21st?
Me too.
How about Tom and
Yes.
Madam Clerk?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
It's fine.
and so,
Make the motion. Stand up.
yeah, I don't think we need to.
Yeah,
just
I'm good.
schedule a special meeting.
Both those dates.
Okay, and that should give us plenty of time to do the public notice that we need to do for the public hearing, because at that meeting, just so that you guys know, we'll do 2 meetings. We'll have our meeting and sort of insert it into that at some point. We'll pause our meeting and open the public hearing, hear from the public, who can also talk to us through our connection. And then we'll close the public hearing. Have a discussion of what we've learned from that, to decide whether that merits further consideration of some of the issues that may have come up. And then after that, we'll resume our meeting and hopefully we'll get a motion then to approve the site plan application. That's about as efficient as it can be. And, you know, at least at this point, I don't see any reason to think that's unrealistic. So, and given the way things have been working in the last couple of years now, we shouldn't, I don't anticipate any delays, so. All right, so we'll plan to have a meeting on the 21st. And at that, we'll also have the public hearing. And then we'll consider whether to approve the site plan application. All right.
Great. Well, thank you for your consideration. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. We have some minor things still on our agenda. You're welcome to leave. We feel insulted. So, and let's see, Tom, we need to let Phil Wire, we're gonna meet on the 21st.
Yeah,
I can do that.
okay, that would be,
I'll do this.
found something in the plans, I wanted to just run by these folks. Well, while I have their attention.
I hope he'll say that it's, you know, and how to improve, yeah, like this, but not up here yet. Well, that one.
I can notice that tomorrow. Okay. Okay, great.
So we do have two more agenda items. Any old business?
I wouldn't remember.
No, that's my line.
I know, right?
Come on, you're too young for that. Okay.
That's too long ago.
How about new business? Now we're talking.
Now we're talking for you.
I want to just throw one thing out. Tom has mentioned this to me several times. There is no formal sort of form for people to use when they want to commence a site plan review. There's just a list of things in the ordinance
Oh, okay.
that they want to submit. So I'm thinking that a small but possibly very helpful project could be for someone to put together an application.
So the forms, what would that hurt? Should that serve?
It would give us, you know, a lot of very basic information, but also create a little bit more of a roadmap for applicants.
Okay.
So that they don't have to wade through the zoning ordinance stuff in order to figure out how to submit. But it could ask them for some really basic information, all stuff that, you know, is required as a part of the application packet. But that would also, like I said, help them, because at this point, Tom can't say, okay, here's your application, start working on that, you know.
There's not a single thing that you could do.
Yeah, it's like, okay, go to the ordinance.
Well, that's
Work
what I
your
basically
way
did.
and work your way
Sections.
through, you
Yeah,
know,
that's hard.
section after section of stuff that, you know, when you sort of get right down to it, there's just a list of things that you need to put together. So think about whether that's something.
Is that something you would want us to do in a meeting together?
I think we could do that, or we could do it where somebody sort of
Does
puts
it?
together a
Yeah,
draft
right.
in advance that we then, you know,
Like look through.
poke at them and see, you know, okay, are there other things that we'd like to know, things like that.
Mhm.
I can also set you up a really workable area to work on documents. It's not as cumbersome as say Dropbox, but something better if you want to
Right,
collaborate on the document.
right.
I don't know how complicated it is.
Yeah, I don't either, but I do know, I've done enough to know that there are lots of samples out there.
Yeah, I was just gonna, maybe there is like a
We don't
template.
have to
for-
reinvent the wheel for this.
Totally.
So,
Phrase.
yeah. But I think, you know, that would be a community service more than anything that would be particularly any more helpful to us, you
Right.
know. But, you know,
It would be helpful for you, Tom, though, because you wouldn't be constantly having to point people in the right direction when they're
Yeah.
like, what do I do? Yeah,
So it's just basically just to go tell them exactly where
Right.
to look for each thing that they need.
or what they actually need.
I think we just
Need
ask
to
them, you
do.
know, so what's the applicant's name, you know?
Well, I've had a lot of frustration with this project because the initial plan is totally out the window. But there's been no plan subsequently, and talk to them and say, I need a plan, and I get a verbal. The construction manager, Brian McCoy there. Bright guy, knows a lot, and he's rattling through all this stuff, and this is great, but I need something in writing, I can't really. Push against it or whatever. But
Well, you gave us
it's
those,
heartening to see finally have some material.
you gave us that book, you know, that it was a planning guide book, made by some university.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and, you know, it tells you what you need in
Mhm.
a site plan review.
Yeah,
Like that's where I would look to
yeah,
start that.
yeah, and you know, lots of little villages like us have these things too.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, right. That would be good. It would.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I hear a voice of a planning board member that I made collaboration with, because they're the spearhead of this project?
Oh my God, I can't.
I don't know
I can't.
about it yet.
Yeah, I don't know.
well,
I just
okay.
became
It would
president
be-
of
it would be
the
a-
foundation and
for somebody who wanted to dive into
Yeah.
the site plan review process.
Yeah.
something to
I
do.
couldn't do it this fall, but because of other commitments. But again, I'm trying not to reinvent the wheel with a lot of new things as
Sure,
part of the foundation.
What if I assist Tom in servicing some templates that look pretty good to him, all right? And we launch that out to you all for your discussion.
I missed the first part.
What if I help you look at some
Oh,
templates that
dig
look pretty
something
good, all right to
Yeah,
you, and we
that's-
service that to the planning. board.
Yeah.
That would be really nice,
Yeah.
Jess.
Next move.
I think that-
Yeah, I
I
think so too.
commit to that amount of effort.
Okay, thank you,
You're the
Jess.
best.
You are the best.
all right, anything else? How about a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
In favor? Aye, opposed? Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
I know.